So thanks everyone for coming to this really casual brief sharing session about how to pitch. So I've done this workshop a couple times in mainland China to other accelerators and co-working spaces, and people found it helpful. So hopefully this is also helpful for you, but I welcome any feedback. So like Maria said, my name is Ray, and I work for 500 startups. My email is up there, and my Twitter account is right there as well, so feel free to add me or email me your complaints, comments, concerns after I'm done. And so 500 Startups we are a global seed fund and accelerator. That's right, we're a hybrid seed fund and accelerator, now in 6 countries. We're based out of Silicon Valley, and we have invested in 500 startups already, actually. I shouldn't say that because we haven't made a big announcement yet. But we have invested in hundreds of startups globally in over 30 countries. And does anyone here know us? Oh, okay. So most of you know who we are. But I was going to just do an advertisement anyway. So, like I said, we have an accelerator program which runs twice a year, and where we typically invest between $25,000 to $250,000 into a company. The accelerator program accounts for 1/3 of our investments, and the seed fund accounts for about 2/3. We are active, like I said, we're headquartered in Silicon Valley, but we have offices in New York City. We have a co-working space there. In the Flatiron District. We have a San Francisco office about to open very soon, and we have an accelerator in Mexico, and venture partners investing out of Brazil, India, China, Southeast Asia. We have a network of 1,000 founders and over 250 mentors who are very active and engaged in helping each other, and that's one of our proudest accomplishments. Just one line about myself. I come from a finance background. I worked in investment banking before, and as well as private equity, mostly in technology and media, and also in some other random industries. And I was born in China, grew up in Silicon Valley, and I've been working in China for the past 6 years, so since 2007. So, I intend for this presentation to be really interactive, right? I wanted to talk about first what are some of the myths I perceive people have about pitching. So 3 of the things I hear the most from entrepreneurs when we talk about a pitch is that they believe it's just for investors. They believe that a pitch is only that conversation when you have with investors. They also believe that it comes naturally, that some people are just good at pitching and it's not something you can really practice. That and it's the end goal. It's that one thing you have to do and funding will magically come. So for all 3 of these things, these are dead wrong. So number 1, it's definitely not just for investors. Anyone here have a clue about how pitches can be used? What are other audiences maybe that you would pitch to?
A future employee, like Steve Jobs pitching to John Scotty.
Great, yeah, exactly. Getting employees, recruiting, yes.
Is your parents are doing something useful?
Is your parents doing something useful? Okay, any other ones? Any other ideas? Yes.
Pitch yourself to girls.
Pitch yourself to girls, okay. All right, and what does the girl entrepreneur here say?
Potential customers.
Potential customers, yeah. You should honestly always be pitching, right? You're not just pitching to investors. You're pitching to maybe potential partners, potential customers, and of course key employees or any employees, right? And pitching to the greater community. You might be pitching to media, for example, where you're getting media coverage. Number 2, it doesn't come naturally. So most people aren't very good at pitching initially. Even for people who have a great stage presence and who are very used to, for example, speaking and communicating, pitching a product or a service or their company is not necessarily that comes naturally. It's something you have to put a lot of thought into and work at. And finally, it's definitely not the end goal. In fact, it is the first thing. It's the first step. if I had to use an analogy, and this might be a terribly politically incorrect analogy, would be, it's like asking a girl out on a date. It's not their relationship. It doesn't seal the deal. All it is you make the ask, right? So having a good pitch is important, but then you also need to follow up, you need to negotiate, and you need to close the deal. And then you need to really execute on your product, right? So pitching is just like the very, very tip of the iceberg. So, like I said, if I had to use this, my terrible analogy, what's the pitch supposed to do? You just ask someone out, and then hopefully you get a date, meaning you get further involved in the master process. Hopefully you get a proposal from an interested investor, and then you sign. So, okay. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I actually don't even know if my colleagues necessarily agree with me, but having heard a lot of pitches and having sat on as judge in a lot of competitions and whatever, I feel like there are three main types of pitches that everyone should have down, right? So the first one is what I call the elevator pitch. It should last no more than 30 seconds. It should be about 1 to 3 sentences. It should be very, very, very clear and succinct and to the point. So if I had to pitch, for example, 500 startups, this is what I would say. I would say 500 startups is a global hybrid seed, fund, and accelerator program that has invested in over 500 projects to date. We are active in 6 countries and currently employ 30 staff with $70 million under management. Is that clear? What I described? So when you're pitching your product or your company or your service, obviously your product is probably a little bit different from a fund. You want to make sure you are that clear. So 2 sentences, 3 sentences, you have explained what is the thing that you're offering and hopefully demonstrated some traction. And we'll go over that more later. And then like for those of you that are in accelerators or are part of startup competitions, you'll know that typically you're asked to prepare a 3 to 5 minute sort of what I call an uninterrupted demo day pitch, right? So a pitch like sometimes you give in front of an audience or at least a panel. You should be ready for events like that as well. And then there's what I call like the 30-minute live interactive pitch. Typically it's really honestly not going to be maybe up to an hour, but you should probably budget for 30 minutes. Does anyone know why I say you should probably budget for 30 minutes versus an hour?
Like you will pitch for 10 minutes, and people will ask you a question for the other 20 minutes.
Yeah,
So 30
that
minutes
and often people run late and people like things come up. So even if you have an appointment for an hour, and this often happens to me, I go try to meet someone for an hour, things happen, they have to receive a call, and you know what? Most of the time, you only get 30 minutes. So while it's great if you have enough material to fill a whole hour, don't be offended or don't be alarmed, right? Have something that's really suitable, modular for 30 minutes. You should be ready to pitch any of these at any time. And how many of you have gone to a conference and then heard a speaker and really, or met an investor or whatever, and really wanted to talk to them, but there was like a throng of people waiting to talk to this person, and you know you're pretty much only going to be able to go up and say hi and get 2 sentences out. How many of you have had that happen? Okay, well the rest of you need to go to more conferences and events, okay? So that happens quite a bit. So that's really, really helpful for that first pitch, right? Get your company and get your idea out in 2 sentences. It's usually enough to hold hands, look them in the eye, introduce yourself and your product. Hopefully it makes a connection. If it doesn't, then maybe you need to refine your pitch. The 3 to 5 minute one is a little bit like more rare, but it's for really good effect if you can get it down, because that's the ones that if you enter the competitions and do well, that's going to get you media coverage. So that might get potential customers, potential partners coming up to you. And depending on the venue, maybe potential investors as well. And I put this up front because it might lose your attention in another 2 minutes or 5 minutes. If there are 3 things I hope you can take away from this presentation, is that I think, this is once again my personal opinion, but I find that the most effective pitches are succinct and they build credibility, and they are able to connect emotionally, right? You're able to build rapport with the investor, customer, whatever future input may be. So a lot of people will actually do things that destroy rather than build their credibility. And this is something that my boss, Dave McClure, does very well. He's very good at building credibility. Sometimes you have to admit failure and be vulnerable and be like, hey, I did that and it didn't work out, but now I know how to do it better. It's much better to do that. That builds credibility than to say, yes, I rock at everything, but yeah, my company's still not going anywhere because I don't have the traction to support it. Does that make sense? That's one thing I actually think a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe because you guys are all under really, really high pressure to succeed, sometimes forget to do. And every pitch should answer, so notice I'm using 3 because if you read a lot of public speaking sort of materials, most people can only retain 3 points about any given idea. So, and I actually find that pretty much 3 points is enough to explain anything. For a pitch, I believe that there are 3 whys you should answer. Why is this problem so painful? Like we like to say at 500 Startups, pitch my problem, not your solution. A lot of times, your solution might be amazing, might be technically extremely elegant and whatnot, but if the person, if the audience, cannot understand the depth and the immensity of the problem you're trying to solve, they will not be impressed by your solution. Does that make sense? A lot of the best pitches, really what they have done is they're so good at describing the problem and making it so vivid and making the audience feel like they can feel the pain point, that this person, after the best reaction is after you explain the problem you're trying to solve, someone is like, oh my god, I totally know what you're talking about. That is extremely painful. What's your solution? That's almost like the best reaction you can have when you pitch. And then you want to answer, why is it a good time now to fix it? You know, there are many problems in the world. For example, I don't know, like fixing organs, or I don't know, cloning meat, like one of my friends is doing. Why is it a good time now to engage this problem? And then, of course, why are you the best team to fix it, right? So it's all about, why is this a really immensely interesting or painful problem? Why is this a good time now to engage in it? And why are you the right person? Everything else is just tactics. So if there is anything I hope you can take away from this presentation, is that you should lead with a bang. Does anyone know why you should lead with a bang if you have it? Does anyone know? Yes.
Yes, attention.
You get their attention, but also, if you're talking to someone important or busy, what often happens? You get interrupted, right? So it's not necessarily they're not trying to pay attention to you, but you may get interrupted. Why would you save the most important part of your pitch for last? There's a huge chance, especially like if that elevator pitch happened. Imagine who is your most, I don't know, revered investor? Who is an investor like, so does someone want to throw out a name that you really, really, really are dying to meet? No one? You guys are not into getting investment. Like for me, for example, like I love Warren Buffett. If I were ever in an elevator with Warren Buffett, you know, I want to be able, well, I hope let's say I have a business I want to pitch, and I only have 30 seconds. We're going from floor 1 to 20 or whatever, right? I want to say hi Warren, and then I want to lead with the most interesting thing I have to say, because someone else could cut it at any moment. He could be getting out at floor 2. You know, you want to put your most interesting moment up front. You don't want to have someone that you really want to reach, like stand there and being like, where are you going? Right? You want to put your most interesting point up front. Another thing is you want to show demo. A lot of you have products that have actually functional prototypes, right? How many of you have products that have actually functional prototypes? How many of you have been in pitches where you talk about your product, and the person sitting across the table has a blank stare on their face, and then you're like, wait, let me show you. And then there goes, aha, I know what you're trying to do. How many of you have had that experience? Okay, all right. Well, those of you that didn't raise your hand after the first hand raising, your product probably just didn't work. But yeah, if your product worked, most likely that's the reaction you're gonna have. A lot of times it's very difficult to verbally communicate something you built, but when you show it to someone, it makes a lot more sense and it connects. Number 4 is explicitly state the market. A lot of entrepreneurs have been working on their product or market for so long, they assume everyone else knows all about it. No, we don't. So explicitly state and hopefully finally segment what market you're going after. How big is it? How fast is it growing? These are like very common sense things that people sometimes forget, not necessarily because you guys don't have the information, but because you just forget that other people don't know. So once, and going back to also demo, if you have traction or metrics, anything interesting about your company, you want to talk about it up front. And then finally, of course, always, why should I bet on you? If I had to break down the 30-second pitch, first sentence is, what do you do and how do you make money? Second sentence would be, how big is this problem? And third sentence would be a variety. It would either be talking about something that makes you really special, right? If you have traction, talk about your traction. If you have an awesome world-class team, talk about your awesome world-class team. If you have paying customers or marquee customers that are very difficult to get, throw that name out there. Or sometimes at the very end, like if you really don't have any of those, but you have investment or you have some cool investors, you need to talk about that too. But honestly, that's probably the least impressive, right? So first thing, always just say what your product is and how do you make money. We are a subscription food service that charges people $9.99 a month to try new and interesting organic products. Whatever, I just made that up on the spot based on a portfolio company. But that makes it very clear, right? How big is this problem? We are in $1 billion market that's growing at 15% a year. Why is your solution awesome? We now have 10,000 paying customers in all 50 states of the United States of America. Okay, boom. Three sentences, you explain to me pretty clearly what you're doing and how big the market is. And if I'm interested, I would probably want to follow up. Keep it simple.
Sorry, can we take a photo?
Yeah, feel free. These are really ugly slides I made up like 2 months ago. So feel free. This is something I did jack from, I think a presentation my boss made, which is 10 slides to an awesome pitch. The thing I talked about earlier, the three sentence pitch was for something that's usually in person, but actually you could use that structure to preface an email as well. So when you email a deck to people, how many of you have emailed your business plan or pitch deck to people? Right? I actually find it very helpful to just use those 3 sentences to explain what your pitch is what your deck is going to be about. How many people get emails and you only read the first 3 sentences anyways? Do you really read like a 4-paragraph email? Unless it was like a love letter or something? Yeah. No, most people, if you don't get their attention in the first 3 sentences, or sometimes we just skip the email altogether, right? But let's say, you do read the email, 3 sentences cover is enough, and then no more than 8 or 10 slides. Your point is no one is going to make an investment decision based on just the email or the slides. The point of this is as a teaser to intrigue them, to get their attention, so they will come and have a face-to-face meeting with you. Remember the actual date, the investment process, and then make you an offer, right? So these are, a lot of people use this format, and I really think it probably is the most wise and accepted format, 10 slides to a pitch, right? So you have the elevator pitch up front, you discuss the problem, remember, the problem, then you talk about your solution, and then you follow up with market, demo if you have it, a screenshot of your demo if your product is already functional and live, and then hopefully you talk about your traction. You notice that basically as you get along in the page numbers, it decreases in importance. This is pretty scientific in the sense that most investors will probably want to know the scope of the problem and your solution, and then all those other things like your proprietary advantages, they will read if they're interested in the problem you're solving and the solution you're proposing. So think about a deck in the same way. You want to put your biggest bang up front, because guess what? A lot of people are not going to finish reading your deck. You want to grab their attention up front. How many of you already use this format for pitching or writing your business plan? How many of you have more than 15 slides in your pitch deck? I think the rest of you are just not raising your hands. How many of you have more than 25? Okay, that's really way too long. Very unlikely that someone getting an email is going to read it. Actually, there are multiple tools, I can't remember the name right now, for fundraising where you can actually get data feedback on people clicking on your file and how long you're spending on each page. And you'll realize it's like less than 10 seconds, something like that. Okay, so after all that talk about pitching, I wanted to show you guys some live examples. Wait, how do I play the video? Oh, here we go. Okay. I want to show you guys a video and get your feedback. We'll do some live critiques of actual pitches, okay? These are pitches that were given at, and so this falls into the second category, right? Like the 3 to 5 minute sort of pitch. Sorry, we need this sound.
Email to collaborate with people outside of your organization? And how many think that's really efficient? Exactly. We've built a web-based work platform that organizes work across people, across organizations, because we believe that's where work is heading. We also believe that each organization has a unique way of doing things. So we've just built the platform on which you build the functionality and the applications. Whether it's for organizing a meeting, events, sharing your tasks, or fixing your bugs, you get a tool that works like you, not the contrary. We want to become your platform for work like Facebook is for your social life. Therefore, we've entered this enterprise market with a consumer business model, with a freemium player with premium on top, and that makes us grow 40% a month. Currently, though, we're still in private beta. So, in short, we help you out with the problem we started, so we organize your work.
Okay, who wants to volunteer and tell me what that business does? Who wants to just regurgitate the last 46 seconds we heard? Who knows what business he just pitched? Okay, do you want to repeat for us the business as you heard it?
Actually, I also would say that that's his problem. It doesn't tell us what his problem is.
think that's his big problem, is that he doesn't tell the audience what problem he's trying to solve. So I don't even know what he's trying to finish.
So that was like a bunch of sentences, right? Maybe like 6, 8, maybe 10 sentences. So imagine if he was in the elevator, that probably would take him to the 80th floor, with his most desired investor. What do you think anyone would have understood what the heck he was talking about? I didn't. Who didn't understand what he was talking about? Okay, all right, yeah. So I don't know this person's name. I just found it randomly on YouTube. This was actually the winning pitch at a business plan competition. I think most likely there was another component that went into it, but if you went into a elevator pitch, or if you spent 1 minute trying to explain your business and that was what you ended up with, very unlikely you'd be given a second chance. Very, very, very unlikely. So what do you think are some of the issues with his pitch, other than not stating the problem?
Number one is it moves too much.
Okay, aside from stylistics, just like his content, let's assume he was, Brad Pitt good looking and had awesome stage presence. Just based on, like, if you weren't distracted by his moving around, just based on the content of what he said.
I didn't understand any of the comments, so I have no comments.
You didn't understand any of the content, but he was speaking perfect English, right? Notice how important communication is. How do I get back to my PowerPoint? Oh, escape. Okay. So, actually, that's all I wanted to talk about that product, that pitch. Let me show you another one. This is totally not biased.
On the west side, Michael Mandel from Comstack. Comstack is making the $500 billion commercial real estate market more efficient through crowdsourcing. Let's give it up for Mike and Comstack!
Everybody, thanks for coming. I am super psyched to kick off Batch 5 Demo Day. This is awesome, and you're going to see some of the best entrepreneurs in the world today. My name is Michael Mandel. I'm the co-founder of Comstack, and we crowdsource commercial real estate data. In the past year, brokers from every major brokerage firm in New York City started using Comstack. Why? Because we know what these people pay for office space. In fact, we know what everybody pays for office space. This is information that's been fragmented and difficult to compile, but we've compiled it. And when you're looking for office space, your broker needs this information to help you get the best deal. These records are called comparables, or comps. Before Comstack, brokers traded comps via email, via phone, and market leads. I was a broker, and I know how crappy this process was. Now brokers go on Comstack. They use a point system. They share the comps they have to find the comps they need. And as a result, we build a clear picture of the commercial real estate market. And we sell this picture to real estate private equity funds, banks, asset managers, real estate investment trusts, and hedge funds. In New York, virtually every single broker from every major brokerage firm is in New York, and we've got nearly all of the comps in the city. And we're starting to sell this data to property owners, some of the largest real estate owners in the world. As a frame of reference, Tishman's Fire has over $50 billion in commercial real estate assets. And these companies pay us 5-figure annual contracts. Our data is so good that it's used regularly by the Wall Street Journal. In fact, we've been in 7 different articles in the journal so far. In San Francisco, we launched 2 weeks ago. We already have 70% of the major brokerage firms signed up, and we've got 61% of all of the commercial office deals completed in San Francisco in the past year in our system. We're going to start selling to property owners in San Francisco, but in fact, we're going to sell throughout the entire country because we're going to scale into every major city. Our traction is fantastic. New brokers sign up for CompStack every single day, and our revenue is increasing with $30,000 annual contracts, and that's just for New York data. But trading lease comps is just the first step. Commercial real estate technology is in the dark ages, and we're transforming it using our proprietary crowdsourced model to bring the light to commercial real estate. And the market opportunity is massive. $500 billion in commercial real estate transactions take place per year. Brokers do those transactions, and we help them make those deals. But that's nothing compared to the nearly $7 trillion in commercial real estate assets in the United States. And real estate owners, our customers, are buying those assets and using our data to make the analysis to do those deals. We have a terrific team. I'm a former broker, but we also have experts in technology, operations, marketing, design, and data analysis. Our investors are at the intersection of real estate and technology. We've raised over $1 million so far, and we're raising a new round to scale CompStack throughout the country. So, if you want to be a part of transforming the $500 billion commercial real estate industry, come talk to us after we're in the insurance. Thanks a lot.
Okay, how many of you understood that? How many of you would give that pitch a thumbs up? Okay, wow. Who wants to volunteer and tell me what CompStack does? Like if you had to regurgitate, give me a one-sentence summary of what this company does. Who wants to volunteer? If you gave it a thumbs up, that means I hope you understood it. Okay.
They match brokers.
They match brokers well, that's really simplified. Could be more than a 3-word sentence. Does anyone else want to volunteer? Yes.
I guess they provide the key data to make property decisions for a buyer, for an investor. Obviously, there are certain criteria, data that's needed to make those decisions.
Right.
Commercial real estate.
Yeah, they crowdsourced commercial real estate data, right? That was his very first slide. So what are some other things you guys noticed that Michael did well?
You mentioned press, you mentioned huge clients, everybody signing up.
Marquee clients, yep.
Size of the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he does, I would argue one of the most important things he did was he talked about the traction, right? The marquee clients that he signed up, the 5-figure contracts that they have, and of course, obviously the press, customer testimonials, et cetera, help. But really, he really defined how much they've progressed, right? The bar charts that showed he's got 91% or whatever of Manhattan, and in 2 weeks got 61% of San Francisco. Did I just say all the good points? Yes?
Talked about what investors he's got on board and what their interests were.
Yeah, he talked about his investors.
Talked about his team as well.
Yep, his investors and team. Love that for then. So I would say here are some of the strengths that I found from Michael's presentation.
How long was that presentation?
That was, everyone's capped at 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes. But you could probably do it, he could probably do that in 1 minute very effectively as well. So here are the things that I personally found to be very good about CompStack's pitch, right? He led with traction. He talked about how much of the market he covered, the clients he signed up, and the rough dollar amounts of those clients. So immediately you're like, okay, this is a company generating revenue. This is a company with really reputable clients. He also explained the problem a lot, very well in layman's terms. I actually used to do some real estate investing, so it's very easy for me to understand. But for those of you that had never touched commercial real estate before, how many of you even knew what Tishman Speyer was? Okay, so some of you didn't know. But for the rest of you who didn't know, what did he do? he explained to you the significance of this name, right? He said, this is a company with $50 billion market cap or revenue, I can't remember what it was, right? So immediately you're like, okay, I never heard of that company before, but it's a real company, right? So this is an important client. That's what I mean by he gave a lot of context, right? So while most likely, Michael's probably going to be targeting people familiar with the real estate technology space, in case there were, investors or customers or whatever who weren't familiar with it, he explained the significance of these names and numbers he's throwing out, right? He explained that the market was $6.7 trillion, et cetera, et cetera. And then he showed momentum. This is a company that's demonstrated traction, but it's also really accelerating growth, right? So when you have a company like that, make sure you highlight those. I cannot tell you how many pitches I've heard where, the first 20 minutes I'm listening going like, oh, where is this going? And then the last 2 minutes, they throw in 2 sentences that are like, yeah, by the way, I have 14 million downloads and 2 million paying customers. And it's like, why didn't you tell me that in the beginning? Because that would have made me pay attention a lot more, right? Let me show you guys another example.
Out the gate strong. All right, next up,
Very
Ryan
different type of
Radowski
company.
from Wago. If you've ever been confused in a foreign country, and I have, you'll really like this next app called Wago. Let's hear it for Wago!
I'm Ryan from Wago Translator. We build instant visual translation for your smartphone. So let's talk about the first time that I went to China. I had heard that if you eat the wrong thing, you could be sick for weeks. So when I went to my first Chinese restaurant, I asked the waitress for a recommendation. She looked at me and she told me, 外国人总是吃kung pao jiding. And the only word in that entire phrase I understood was kung pao. So that's what I ate every single day for the next month. And then I found out that this wasn't just my problem, so I decided to build Wago. Let's take a look. Instant visual translation. Simply by hovering your smartphone over foreign text. Isn't that amazing? It's made possible because of our patent-pending technology that we've been developing for over 2 years. This technology allows the app to translate in real time, so it's instant. But it also allows the app to translate offline, so people like you and me won't incur ridiculous international roaming fees for translating with Wago. And people are loving it. We already have 50% month-over-month growth. And it's not just that, people are engaging with the app. Our average active user in China is translating 140 times per week. And Lonely Planet has said this app is amazing, and it works perfectly on a local Chinese restaurant. So, aside from our organic growth, and some of the paid advertising we're doing, we're building up distribution partnerships so that we can get our users right when they need Wago the most. We've already partnered with English First, which is the top provider of English teachers around the world. So they offer our app to every single teacher going through onboarding in China. And we're working on similar models with top travel brands, including American Airlines, Lonely Planet, and TripIt. So how do we make money? Is it a big enough market? Yes, it is. We have a simple model where we charge $14.99 for unlimited translations per language for an in-app purchase. And this first release of the app can already help 10 million English-speaking travelers per year to China. But it's not just China we're talking about. Our technology allows us to build for every single high-traffic international destination. So we can help 500 million international travelers per year. And it's not just Americans, but Chinese travelers, European travelers, and more. We've got an amazing, passionate team behind the product with over 10 years of computer vision experience. And today we're raising $500,000 with over 315K already committed. And we're doing that so we can hire an Android developer, hire a biz dev teammate, and release 2 more language packs. So if you want to be on the cutting edge of travel technology, and can envision a world without a language barrier. You should come talk to us afterwards. We're in the yellow Wago t-shirts.
How many of you would give that pitch a thumbs up? Oh, okay, yeah. I was like picking like all the best pitches from a certain seed fund that invests globally. So does anyone want to give me a summary? Once again, one sentence summary of what Wago does? Yes.
He translates menus.
He translates menus, okay. Well, a little more than menus, but yes, that's one of the primary applications he showcased, yes.
Real-time translation of your mobile app.
Yes, okay, whoa, yeah. Real-time visual translation on your smartphone is basically what he said, that's what he said. Okay, what are some things that you guys liked about this pitch? Anyone want to share? Yeah.
The product demo was very simple, and as soon as you see it, you know what it is.
Yes, the product demo. Yes. Sandra, again?
Market opportunity.
Market opportunity, okay, yeah. Oh. Multilingual, okay, so just like the market where it could grow. Yeah, so this is a very different pitch from Michael Mandel's pitch, right? Very, very different from Comstack. Comstack was a company that had this very, very clear, whatever, $7 trillion sort of real estate asset market, and already had signed up a bunch of marquee customers and was already generating pretty significant revenue, actually. Wago is, by comparison, a much more tech-heavy product, and when you have a product like that, where the market, he did a good dissection of the market, but the market is nothing compared to like $7 trillion, right? It was like 500 million times 10 or something. When you have an awesome technology, what did he do? He led with the technology, right? He led with the product demo, and immediately you're like, okay, you get what he's doing. You either like it or not. You don't. But at the very least, immediately you know what he's trying to sell you. So if we had to go by some of the things I thought were awesome about Ryan's pitch, I thought he really rocked it with a personal anecdote that some people might have found funny, especially if they had a similar experience. He really rocked the demo. So once again, like I said, if you have technology, show your product. I thought he did a good job with the market sizing, and he has a really, really simple revenue model. Because he didn't really have that much traction, this was 6 months ago when they had just released. He went with customer testimonials, right? He quoted specifically Lonely Planet, which is presumably an expert in international travel. So when you don't have as strong of traction, then he showed the growth, the potential for growth that, it was 140 translations per week, and it was growing 50%. Find other statistics to support your case. Maybe we're small right now, but we're growing fast. Does that make sense? So, were there anything that you guys didn't like about his pitch? Oh, there's no Android version. I think that's coming. Yeah.
I didn't like the very beginning. I thought he lost me, and then as soon as he showed the product there, he got it.
You didn't like the very beginning. You actually didn't like the personal anecdote. Okay. Yeah. But he kept it pretty short, right? So it's still relatively speaking what he led with the demo. Yeah.
To understand the team or why he's the best at what he does.
Okay. He didn't perhaps really talk about the competition either, etc. Okay. Yep. So those are, once again, those are questions. Those are probably questions investors would have after watching that pitch. But remember, the point of a pitch is to get someone's attention, so that you're interested enough to actually want to find out the answer to those questions, right?
One other thing. It was Hong Kong, not China.
What?
It was Hong Kong, not China.
Oh, the photo. Yeah. All the traditional Chinese characters kind of give it away. Yes. Good eye. Okay, and last one. I'm going to show you another pitch that's also for products quite different. I'm in love with my threes. So this is the third and final pitch.
like to advise the peanut gallery on the side to not be quite so obvious in steering the audience. Up next, the best in Chinese and Jewish entrepreneurship, Tracy Lawrence from Choose. Choose is the B2B marketplace for group meals. Big groups, big meals, thousands fed. Let's hear it for Jewish entrepreneur Tracy Lawrence.
Actually, 2 years ago, I was a very serious student at USC, and I worked with admin assistants and office managers. They told me that the hardest part about their job was actually ordering meals for lunches and for their staff. I asked them how they did it. They showed me this binder. It's full of paper menus, faxes, and phone numbers for phone calls, and they absolutely hated the task. You know what? Forget that. I said, I'm starting a business that's now already fed tens of thousands of meals, and that's Choose. We've already fed in 2 test territories 20,000 meals. And these are from big customers. Customers that include Wells Fargo, USC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And these companies spend $30,000 a year on our platform just to feed their people. And company-wide across these territories has $500,000 instead. So I'm excited to tell you that as the founder and CEO of Choose, my name is Tracy Lawrence, and what we've built is a system that has solved my fundamental pain, and it's a B2B marketplace. And what we make it easy to do is for the decision makers, the admin assistants, and the office managers to be able to order food. Anything from that 5-person sales meeting to the 50-person everyday lunch meal. And we know admins because the customer is in our DNA. And admins love us back. So about 78% of them are retained month over month. And that's just on our self-service platforms. In fact, since we joined 500 startups, last month we quadrupled revenues. Thank you. And that's just in 2 tech territories. That annualizes us to $250,000 of revenue annually. But we have a waiting list now of 700 companies. You guys, we're ready to go because there's a market out there of $1.4 billion on the table in LA alone for catering. And that's not just LA. That's markets across the country that are spending billions for corporate catering. The total being a $33 billion market. And as I stand before you today, 99.7% of that is transacted offline. It's transacted this way. We have investors from Twitter and Google. We have advisors from Quora and Menuism. We're raising $500,000. Actually, as of this morning, we have 85% of that committed. Thank you. So if you're ready to fight the tyranny of the paper menu and fight the tyranny of the fax machine, please come talk to me. Let's talk about Choose.
How many of you would give that a thumbs up? I noticed lots of people. Actually, I have had this similar experience as well in other test territories. Does someone want to give me a 1-sentence summary of what Tracy's business is? Yes?
Platform to feed corporations.
Sorry?
It's a platform to feed corporations.
Platform to feed corporations. Yeah, it's just a marketplace for corporate catering, right? So, what did you guys like about it? Let's discuss the positive parts first.
I think you made a lot of emotional connection.
She made a lot of emotional connection with like all the binders and talking about the admin assistants having to deal with fax machines. That gave you a very vivid image. Showed you the money. Meaning? She emphasized a lot on the market. Yes, she was very explicit about stating the market size and trying to add things together. This is my current revenue, this is my pipeline, this is total market for this city. But then when you add all these cities together, Yeah. Anything else?
She mentioned big clients who she's already signed up.
She mentioned big clients, so Fortune 500 corporate clients. What didn't you guys like? Those of you that gave it a thumbs down.
I give a thumb up. But
Thumbs up for the pitch.
for the pitch.
Okay.
I do have a question
Okay.
in terms of the numbers we call in the pitch. Should we always call this quotation mark vanity indicators in the pitch? Or should we actually use more fundamental numbers in pitch? Okay.
Okay. Are you
Can I explain a little bit more?
sure?
So like our Bible, Lean Startup says, lots of startups use numbers like total customer number, total revenue made. These are like the blended indicators because as long as you go, this number is always growing. But more fundamentals like maybe like the retention rate, like how many customers, conversion rate, this kind of numbers. So I was wondering, in this sort of bit, should we switch to this more fundamental numbers to use, or should we stick with,
So, well, can I ask, like, what do you categorize the numbers she had as?
I thought it was like my personal feeling was like it's more like a vanity number.
Okay.
Like, oh, this is growing, this is so big number. But like fundamental, I wonder if PwC sends out this month, will they come back next month, or they're just testing you out because they're from 500 startup.
Sure.
So,
Well, okay, there's responses, it seems like, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to raise another point actually. So there was no product demo in that. And no product demo.
Okay, no product demo, okay.
And so I wasn't really sure where, I mean, did she really take that whole big blue Bible and take all of those restaurants in there and translate that onto an online platform? And therefore, I'm questioning how does that look like? How easy is it to order? But I didn't get any sense of that. So I'm just questioning.
Questioning, okay. But she got your interest enough to be questioning.
Oh, the business plan is great.
Okay. That was the point, yeah.
I don't know if I missed it, but I didn't get how she made money.
Okay, you didn't get how she made money. Okay. Fair. She only talked about top line revenue. I don't think she talked about how she made money. Yeah.
I think first off, it's really interesting the market size is massive, so that really got my attention. But I don't know what's proprietary about her business, how it works, how somebody else can, what the barriers to entry for somebody else to do something like that with better technology. I don't even know what technology is to do this, and how it all works between the actual getting the vendors to the people.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All very, very valid concerns that I heard before actually. So that was actually my example of a company where the technology is not very intense, right? It's literally taking offline menus, putting them online, and putting in place an ordering system. I'm actually not too sure if there's also a delivery system intact, but essentially it's a very simple marketplace, right? So, she probably takes a cut of the orders through the website, and what I felt to address the vanity numbers market, I actually felt like her numbers were pretty genuine because she's specifically talking about corporate catering. Like, I would argue that if you were saying like, if vanity numbers would be quoting like the overall catering market or something, but she was pretty specific. This is the corporate catering market. I don't know if she got her statistics, 99.7% of it is offline, etc. And that is, so if you remember, ComStack was a company that had traction. So I want to show you a pitch, how you might want to structure a pitch if your product already has traction. And Wago was a company that didn't quite really have traction, but had really interesting technology. So that's maybe an example you might consider how you might position your product if your product is something that was really interesting technology, but you weren't necessarily quite sure how you're going to sell it or how big it was going to be. And shoes was, I thought, a good example of a really, honestly, really good pitch of a product that didn't really necessarily have a great, it didn't have like a lot of proprietary technology behind it, but was really, this is really a company that's going to be more focused on execution, right, and picking out the right market. So she did a good job, I thought, of picking out, of explicitly stating the market size and the potential. And she talked, I felt like, more than definitely Ryan did about why she had the experience and might have been a good person to run this business. So this is what I thought about shoes. She began with a bang, which some of you might have thought it was bang. She said, I have tens of thousands of meals fed. Yes, you could do the arithmetic and be like, maybe that's not that many people. But immediately she was like, 20,000 meals fed. That was the metric that got my attention. She made the market a lot sexier than it was. Before I had listened to her pitch, I didn't think catering was interesting at all. I had no idea it was a $33 billion market. How many of you knew that it was a $33 billion market, corporate catering? No idea, right? I like the way she put it together and added it up and made you go like, oh wow, there's more. Oh, it's $33 billion. And then of course, because she did have some rock star investors, so she emphasized those. And last but not least, Tracy had really good stage presence. That does help. But honestly, it's also, a lot of it's going to be the content of what you say. Hopefully, the more times you say it, the more smoothly it's going to go anyway. Does that make sense? So I'm pretty much done with what I have to say. We're out of time anyway. I just wanted to highlight some common mistakes that I find people making that I'm sure no one in this audience will ever make. So this is really just me talking shit about people not in this room. A lot of people lie. It's really dumb because it really destroys your credibility. Just don't. A lot of the investors know each other. We won't share confidential information, but a lot of people will say, yes, I got a term sheet from XYZ. You know what? Most likely, someone you're talking to knows that person. It's very easy for them to find out if that's true. A pitch is your chance to build credibility. Please don't destroy it. Once you lose it, it never comes back. If you build credibility, however, maybe the investor you're talking to won't be personally interested in investing, but they may introduce you to someone else, may introduce you to a key hire, which might actually be better than money. A lot of people don't make the ask, sit there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then not really explain what stage of their business they're at. Making the ask doesn't necessarily mean you have to be doing it when you're fundraising, but maybe you want this person to be an advisor. Then be explicit and say, hey, I'd really like you to be an advisor. Maybe you say, I notice you know someone who I may want to recruit as my CTO. Just be explicit. People are busy, respect people's time and make the ask. And it's just good sales in general. You don't want to, no like ninja dating, okay? So don't get too emotional if someone's, criticizing your business. Sometimes, I don't really do it, but I know investors sometimes who like to just push buttons just to see how CEOs react. Because emotional stability is very, very important. So take criticism well, don't get too defensive. There will always be like holes in your business plan, right? Obviously, no one has a perfect business, no one has a perfect anything. And then not being flexible. So once again, expect your demos to fail, have a backup. Okay, if your demo isn't gonna work, the Wi-Fi goes down, have screenshots, expect to be interrupted, like I said. That's why you put all the important information up front. A couple resources I want to highlight. Everyone should put their company on angel.co, which is AngelList. It's the best social network for startups. It's also got a lot more resources now in terms of AngelList Talent, which helps you recruit talent. It's still primarily heavily focused on Silicon Valley, but they're definitely going to cover the globe if that team is a really, really smart team. 2 books that I thought were really helpful for me as an investor, and I assume it's going to be even more interesting to you as entrepreneurs. Spent by Jeffrey Miller. Really good behavioral psychology, talks about how to market your product, and really actually goes down into even designing your product. that addresses a deep emotional need, because those tend to be the products that are most profitable and most lasting. And then running lean. I think most people here have read the Lean Startup. That's just part of the Lean series. And I am pretty much done. If you want to follow us, we now actually have a lot more content on our blog. We have a podcast where we interview our founders. We have I didn't put it up there, but we now have a 500 Startups distribution and marketing Twitter account where they will share interesting distribution tips with you every day. So yeah, feel free to follow me, follow the rest of the team. We have an awesome team focused on, marketing and helping you build a better product. So, and that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, rui@500.co at any time. It might take a couple days for me to get back to you, but if I don't, just email me again. It's a gentle reminder for you. So, thank you. Please give me any feedback. I actually, unfortunately, have to leave, but feel free to give me feedback via email. Thank you.